he said, can you shed some light on the Libertarian Party in which candidate Jo Jorgensen will most likely hurt? Joe, if I'm being honest with you, I had to look up Jo Jorgensen. But Connor, did you know that name?
Yes, I've actually been keeping tabs on the third parties.
So he wants us to talk through what is a libertarian, first of all, and then second of all, how is that going to hurt, or who is that going to hurt in the election? Because obviously anyone with any real momentum or ability to get, in the hundreds of thousands of votes maybe, is going to take those votes from one of the two candidates that will win. And part of the problem with the two-party system is the fact that a third party, all the third party does is give in this case, the left, the opportunity to steal a win. And so when we come back from break, we'll talk through that, Joe, and we will dive into, honestly, the Libertarian platform is probably the platform I identify with the most closely. It is all about liberty and personal freedom and small government, lower taxes, economic, let the economy provide. It's probably the best system out there. It's just a system that doesn't allow for huge government and tons of power for the people in the government, and so it's a system that's probably never going to be implemented. But you're listening to Hometown Heartbeat. When we come back, we'll talk through libertarianism. Is that a word? TheHometownHeartbeat.com, TheHometownHeartbeat.com. Zach Walker, Connor Higgins, and DJ Dallas. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hometown Heartbeat. I am your big, beautiful, bearded host, Zach Walker, checking in with producer Connor and DJ Dallas. Man, I nailed that one. I did it again. That's twice in a row. Don't jinx it and try a third time. Okay, so listener question, Libertarian Party, what are they kind of thing. Explain, give us our insight on the Libertarian Party. Connor is quite the Libertarian Party not advocate necessarily, but quite educated on the topic, keeps tabs on them, very much interested and has been interested in politics from, at what age did you get interested in politics? In fact, I think Connor's the one that when I keep saying I don't want to talk about politics anymore, kind of a thing, Connor just like a little part of him dies every time I say that because he really does enjoy it. But when did you take an interest in politics, Connor?
That's probably right around the 2016 election.
That was a good one. Anyway, so those dang email servers. But anyway, so the Libertarian Party in and of itself is probably where I would identify probably mostly. Some of my gospel principles kind of deviate from I believe the country was founded with God at the center of it, and some of the freedom that the Libertarian Party would maybe advocate for would go against some of the policy that I would like to see in place, biblically speaking. But there is no party that anyone will agree with 100%. And so the platform, I'm going to read from the Libertarian Party's website, just a basic sentence here that will kind of it will help you understand who they are, wholly and very, very much just a summary. But as libertarians, we seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their own lives. That's important. Individuals are sovereign over their own lives and not forced to sacrifice their values for the benefit of others. We believe that respect for individual rights is the essential precondition for a free and prosperous world, that force and fraud must be banished from human relationships. That's idealism. And not only through freedom can peace, and that only through freedom can peace and prosperity be realized. Now here's where I would kind of turn to the right a little bit. Consequently, we defend each person's right to engage in any activity that is peaceful and honest, and welcome the diversity that freedom brings. The world we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own ways without interference from government or any authoritarian party or authoritarian power. So I love the Libertarian platform in the sense that it is a platform of personal liberty, small government, small taxes. It's all about the personal freedoms of each individual American. The government's job is not to get involved, but rather to stay out of the way and let people's lives, kind of let people do their own thing with their life and with their decision making and all that. Now, some of that gets a little too far out there into like I do whatever I want because it feels good, and kind of goes a little too far in certain areas for me personally. But that is the platform of the Libertarian. So that being said, like, who is Jo Jorgensen and why does she matter, and how is she going to hurt, or how is she going to affect the election this year? So Jo Jorgensen, her website is actually pretty good. Her platform is well described and well articulated. Where she stands on certain on certain issues are out there. For instance, on government spending, deficits, and debt. As a president, I will use my constitutional authority to block any new borrowing. I will veto any spending that would lead to a deficit and veto any debt ceiling increase. I will give every cabinet secretary a specific spending reduction target to meet and hold them accountable. There's simply no excuse for sticking our children and grandchildren with the bill for these bipartisan bloated budgets. Preach on, sister. And so it just goes on and on and on. Taxes, for instance, taxes are never voluntary. They are always paid under threat of punishment. If you fail to pay what government says you owe, you can be fined, have your wages garnished, assets seized, even go to prison. Voting for more government spending inevitably leads to higher taxes to pay for it, now or in the future. As president, I will work tirelessly to slash federal spending, make government much, much smaller, and let you keep what you earn. Awesome. Right? However, this is where the rubber meets the road. Unfortunately, the way our government is set up, not how it was set up originally. It was set up originally to be able to have people like this enter into the and look, don't hear me saying we can never get a Libertarian elected. Like, is it possible that Jo Jorgensen could be elected? I would like to think so. Now, realistically, it would take a humongous shift in the whole of the Americans' hearts and minds across. I mean, we're conditioned to the two-party system. And so my opinion is a vote for Jo Jorgensen is a vote for Joe Biden, essentially. Because in this two-party system we have, if it's going to be a hotly contested and close race, which we know it is, especially in the in the key swing states, every single vote matters. And the people that are going to vote for Libertarian are certainly not Democrats by any stretch. The Democrats have long since taken a hard left away from small government, personal liberty. I mean, they're the ones that are dictating terms right now. And so my opinion to the listener that asked is that a vote for Jo Jorgensen will be a vote for Joe Biden, because if you hear the talking points from Jo Jorgensen's website, you hear things that probably more closely identify with conservative viewpoints than you do liberal viewpoints. And so, I would love to think and hope that a third party at some point may, and it may, but it's going to take the destruction of one of the parties that exist. And at one point, prior to the coronavirus and the riots and George Floyd and all the chaos, that when the liberals were parading Donald Trump through this absolutely preposterous impeachment hearing and all this nonsense, I thought they were on their way to destroying the party. I really did. But they've had a bit of a rallying cry here in the fourth quarter over these riots and over the coronavirus, and look, the left is masterful at manipulation. They're masterful at manipulation and spin. Hire them as your marketing team without doubt. But that's my take on it. Connor, what say you?
About just third parties in
Yeah,
general?
just about kind of libertarian, third party, two party. I mean, kind of the overview. I mean, where do you put my assessment?
I think you're mostly spot on most of this.
Mostly?
Oh, well, yeah, generally. I just like to expand upon it a little bit.
Yeah, hit it.
I think that any system where so the voting system that we use is a modified version of first past the post, which basically means that whoever gets the most votes in any election wins, which sounds like a very sensible solution, but there's a rule that if it's the first thing you think of and it seems obvious and it seems easy to implement, it is always a terrible idea. And what happens is it leads to that two-partyification of the voting system, because if at a certain point there will be two bigger parties and voting for anybody else leads to voting against your own interests. So what I think the U.S. needs to do, and some states are already doing this, is implement a ranked choice voting system. Are you familiar with those at all?
I am not. Educate me.
What they are, basically, instead of a ballot where you have a checkbox that you tick next to the candidate you want, you rank them based on your choice. So say you wanted to vote for Jo Jorgensen, that's your option number 1. Donald Trump, say maybe is your number 2, and then maybe you could stop there if you wanted to, or you could go on Joe Biden 3, Howie Hawkins 4, so on and so forth. What that would do is it would allow people to have their voice heard without benefiting something that goes against their own interests. Other countries around the world have done this, and they've seen great success. They've seen greater voter turnout and greater diversity in who represents.
I still don't understand how is it different?
Basically, what happens is when you rank these voters. So, on the first tally, you could say everybody's first choices are taken. All right, and then once those choices are tallied up, whoever got the least first choice votes, those ballots go to the second vote. All right. And
I see.
Those ballots get reallocated to the second choice. If you didn't put a second choice, then the ballots are discarded.
I got you. So basically, it's like a poll almost. Like, I mean, it's literally like if you think about the coaches poll. I'm a sports guy, so if you think about the coaches poll, all these coaches vote 1 through 25, and they take the kind of the amalgamation of all of those to create a sort of comprehensive rating rather than just I like that.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's probably not the best analogy, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So you just keep repeating that process, lobbing off the person in last place until you get a candidate that reaches 50%.
First of all, it terrifies me how smart you are. Second of all, I love that. How do we make that happen? 1 and 2, is it a reality in our country? I don't know. Is it something? We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we come back from the break. You're listening to Hometown Heartbeat, thehometownheartbeat.com, thehometownheartbeat.com. Talking about libertarian, third party, and the two-party system when we return. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hometown Heartbeat. I am your big, beautiful, bearded host, Zach Walker, checking in with producer Connor and DJ Dallas. So before we left, we were talking about what'd you call it, Connor? Like the rank and file voting system or something is what's it called?
It's usually called ranked choice voting.
Rank choice voting. Okay. And so that was a new thing for me. And so we started talking about it a little bit in the break. And the question is, could it happen here?
I've been looking, and apparently in 2005, Congress passed the Voter Choice Act, which was... Wait, I'm sorry. It was going to require the use of ranked choice voting for general elections for federal office. I guess it didn't get passed. the For the People Act of 2019 was passed by the House. It just promoted it. It wouldn't have implemented it, and I don't think the Senate passed it. And there were also a couple other acts that would have promoted that for Congress or the presidency.
Well, and it also does some other things here. I'm looking at uniteamerica.org. Also, if you have some input on ranked choice voting, give us a call, 1-866-494-WVNN, 1-866-494-WVNN. Dallas is going to watch the phones. If you have any information on that you would like to share on this, obviously this is something new to me, and so I'm really curious about this now. Maybe something I get real passionate about, because it seems like it really does something. I mean, it says here, ranked choice voting eliminates the spoiler effect in 3 or more way races. Mm-hmm. Voters often face a choice: vote for who they want and risk electing the candidate they like the least, or vote for the candidate they think is more likely to win. So you really, I mean, how many times have you heard you don't get to vote you don't get to vote your conscience? Because, and I tell people this all the time, and because it's true in our current system, it's true that you don't, like, you got to choose the lesser of two evils. You don't ever, I mean, there could be a candidate on the ballot that I really, really like, but like I said, for instance, Jo Jorgensen. Let's say I really like Jo Jorgensen, and I think she is the best candidate for president, but we've established she's got a 0% chance of winning in 2020. So I cannot vote my conscience or vote who I want, because I don't want to inherently vote for Joe Biden by voting for someone other than Donald Trump. And this will obviously take that away. And it also creates a more positive election environment. Think about it. If you've got a couple of 3 or 4 candidates out there, and the candidates know that second place votes really, really, really matter, then there's going to be less of this nasty campaigning, because they've got to appeal for your second place votes. And so, running personal attacks on candidates and stuff like that, stuff that really polarizes people in a negative way, is going to make you less likely to put them in the second place spot, right? So it would create a better campaigning environment, certainly. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of potential there if we were to do something like that. The third parties are obviously a lot smaller, and they don't have quite the infrastructure that the 2 larger parties do. So maybe you'd want some sort of system in place alongside that boosted them or encouraged that wider civil discourse.
Oh, there would have to be a huge education campaign. I mean, I consider myself, while I don't love politics, and I'm not somebody who wants to be a political talking head or anything, I certainly consider myself educated in regards to matters of politics, and I had never heard of this. So there's certainly going to have to be a huge educational campaign in regards to showing people, educating people on how it works and what it means, and yeah, I mean, look, think about it as, Connor, you've been learning about business hands-on for the last 6 months, working with me and doing what we've been doing with Conroe Productions and all that. So as you've heard the investment conversations and the financial side of all this stuff. Like, as a business or as an investor, say, I don't want to invest in a loser. So the reason why the Libertarian or third party candidates don't have the amount of money that the big parties have is because who's going to pour money into something that they know isn't going to win? When there's a real shot at it, it would change. I mean, it would change the way that. I mean, it would change. That could change. I mean, that could change the republic. I mean, honestly, it could be that big. So that's probably why it'll never happen, because those who are in power don't want to lose power, and inherently they would lose power by having this voting system go in. So we'll see. When we return, the money man's going to be here. You're listening to Hometown Heartbeat. I am Zach Walker, your big, beautiful, bearded host. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Hometown Heartbeat.